paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, it's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
The most lucrative thing in that room, and this might be something we can splice into the cast in the middle of it, but the most lucrative thing to do in that room had nothing to do with the merch lines, had nothing to do with anything Read Pop related. It had everything to do with the fact that there were a bunch of promos given out that weekend that no one knew what they were worth. Not even the vendors.
Yeah, go ahead. Welcome into Brainstorm Brewery, everybody. We're just going to hit the ground running with this because we're going to talk about Las Vegas, and there's a lot to talk about. Let's just dive in.
The big one I want to talk about right away is the PTQ promo Tifa Lockhart. Now, from what I understand, the following numbers were paid for the card by vendors and people who were breaking rules and buying cards in the hall throughout the weekend. $75, $225, $400, $600, $1,200. That's for the non-foil.
Wow.
I know of a vendor who paid, I think the first foil Tifa sold for like $1,100 to a vendor, and the last one of the weekend probably sold for like $4,000 to a vendor. The PT Cloud promo, I heard vendors were saying anywhere from like $800 to $2,000 for the non-foil, and like anywhere from like $4,000 to $10,000 for the foil.
I heard $4,000 on the foil, like as a real thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think the foil is $15,000 long term, right? The Gandalf PT promo or whatever is like $12K, and Gandalf is not Cloud, unfortunately. As much as I love Lord of the Rings. Like the other one is like the Swords to Plowshares promo for the team trios. Did you know that existed?
Nope. Is it I have the Amsterdam Swords to Plowshares where it's like a duck person thing. Is it that?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
No, it's a Final Fantasy 14, probably the best Final Fantasy to have on a card, if I had to guess. Active ongoing MMO, right? It's a Final Fantasy 14 card of a character, and that comes with a Final Fantasy TCG card of that character's twin sister, and the arts link up, and you got them for playing Team Trio side events. I saw a total of one of those the entire weekend. It might be the rarest promo besides the PT Top 32 foil. Like,
wow.
And, not to mention the fact that I think I purchased from vendors multiple of the Secret Lair bonus cards from Final Fantasy for 50% of what TCG Low is today. Like, there's just so much unprecedented stuff that no one really knows where anything's going to land.
And that's why, like, the collector booster boxes drew all the headlines because that was easy to follow.
Right.
Collector booster box buy prices at vendors were starting at like $550, $600 on Wednesday when everyone was getting into Vegas.
Yep.
Online, they were like, I think at that point, like $800 maybe. Go ahead.
One of my friends won a PTQ and sold his boxes for $1,000 a piece.
Well, that's what by Thursday, the boxes online were like $800. By Saturday, they were $1,100. By Sunday night, they were $1,250. Like, and that happened to everything across the board with all the people were opening collector boxes on Thursday and having cards just go up hundreds of dollars in value. And because everyone was in Las Vegas, this isn't a nebulous, this card's in my binder worth money. These are people in Las Vegas gambling on collector boxes and turning around and selling them to vendors. Right. And because everything was just going up, everybody felt like they were making money this weekend.
And I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
One of the important things to note, too, is that I think for Final Fantasy collector booster treatments, like the Surge foils and the foil bonus sheet stuff, peak supply was either in Las Vegas or this week when all the vendors upload their stuff.
That's that's what so many people were asking me about this over the weekend. And if it's in a collector booster only, it's going up. If it's not, it's going down. Yeah. Like it's very simple how it's going to play out from here.
We're also very close to peak supply, I think, for the Secret Lair stuff too. Like, the cheapest Cyclonic Rift on the market is the Final Fantasy Secret Lair one.
Yeah.
That can't be correct. The Final Fantasy Secret Lair Cyclonic Rift is like
You're right.
$10 less than a Return to Ravnica.
Return to
right?
Ravnica, yeah.
Like, do I just go on the internet and buy 100 Cyclonicus for $25 a piece because it's called, I don't know, Arrows something magic? Like, maybe.
I was sitting next to Wizards of the Coast employees over the weekend, and not saying anything that can't be said or whatever. But it was really something to be with people who had a part in bringing the set to life, watching the excitement of it now that it is finally here. And the fact that the way that I put it to them is that the set has broken containment. Like, all the Pokemon money, like all your Pokemon investing subreddit people who are doing this crap, they've all flooded into this.
Yep.
Everyone's complaining about scalpers as if it's not just supply and demand, because everybody is into this. If it wasn't a tell that lines were around the corner on release day, it's hit the mainstream. Las Vegas did what Las Vegas does. It was the largest MagicCon in history. I think 22,000 people is a number I saw cited. It overflowed every booth, every vendor, every activation. It was I cannot imagine anybody anywhere from Square Enix to Wizards of the Coast who wasn't just delighted with how it went as a product, as a launch. The ProTour finals was won by Self-Destruct, a Final Fantasy, not even a crazy Final Fantasy card, a Self-Destruct on a Heartfire hero by Ken Yukihiro wearing a Final Fantasy t-shirt. Like,
I want the record to state.
Yeah, go ahead.
The finals of the PT was Pokemon Worlds 2005 finalist Ken Yukihiro and Worlds 2024 top 4 competitor Ian Robb. Love that. Playing Final Fantasy and Magic, like,
back-to-back.
It's all coming together.
Back-to-back PT top 8s for Ian Robb, by the way.
Yeah. Ian Robb's played like 4 sanctioned Magic tournaments. It was the LCQ to get into DC, top 8's DC, top 8's the PT that qualifies for, then top 8's this PT. Like, come on, man.
Pretty good. So yeah, the picture of Ken Yukihiro holding the Pro Tour trophy and the Buster Sword, like, somebody somewhere there are the 5 people who sat in a room 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and said, well, we know Square Enix is historically really difficult to get anything approved, but what if we tried? What could happen? Like, from Square Enix's side too, I imagine they have to be thrilled with it. Like, and I'm not just trying to do this on a corporate money line go up, but like, people were people were crying over this stuff this weekend. It was just like everything they ever wanted.
One of my favorite things in the world is watching cosplayers do normal stuff. And watching a table in the food court of Sephiroth, Tifa, and Cloud just kind of like all eating salads very delicately was it was an incredible moment. Like, we never had something like that at Magic events before. We had Magic characters, and that's cool, but like, that feels like that doesn't feel like it's a special thing outside of the norm of what Magic can do, right? But it feels like Magic's doing something new now. Like, it's a different world we're in now.
And I told people this in my circles a year and a half ago, based on just, sort of vibes and things I'd gotten from being on the inside of behind the scenes of these events, is that there was the suggestion that this is going pretty well. We had this giant event. Game nights overflowed its audience area. Is it unreasonable to think that Robert Downey Jr. isn't introducing a Magic set 5 years from now at MagicCon? Like, that's the level that is in mind of where things could go. And it felt pretty possible with 22,000 people in the convention this weekend.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Welcome into Brainstorm Brewery, everybody, I guess.
Yeah, it's a new world, and we're all just trying to figure out, is this the Final Fantasy, or are there going to be other releases bigger than this, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, and it is hard to
Spider-Man's not going to be this big, right? Like, there's no shot.
No way.
But like, what could be bigger?
So the thing is, it's not necessarily, in my opinion, just about is there a bigger IP out there than Final Fantasy?
Right.
It's
the one that crosses over with Magic enough that we have a bigger.
But all of the Final Fantasy people who came into Magic and are coming into Magic through this are now into Magic. And for as much talk as there is about tourists and all this stuff, blah, 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 a large number, the reason it's so popular is because there is such an overlap of natural just things that people like, and it's making it accessible to those people. Whereas Universes Beyond has always been looked at as an acquisition tool for new players. Yep. That means they're bringing in new players to the game. So it's not just like if we were to line up IPs, which is the biggest, blah, blah, blah. Magic itself could just be way bigger 3 years from now. And then when you have whatever IP it is, you're just starting from a much larger base. And that's not to say they obviously, I think might go dip back into the well on some of these in the future, right? Like, I think there's probably enough left for another Middle-earth set, for instance,
I
something like that. Yeah, like, I don't know enough about Final Fantasy, but I think that you could definitely squeeze plenty out of Middle-earth again, and that's probably true of multiple franchises. If you want to talk about the franchise kind of thing that would, like, truly break it, it's probably, like, Star Wars.
I don't think it's Star Wars. Genuinely.
Nintendo, like Zelda.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know. I'm really struggling to think of something bigger than Final Fantasy. It's like a 50-year video game franchise that like spans the world, has an active, popular MMO.
Pokemon.
I mean, obviously, but like,
I think that's
Pokemon's
probably the only
game, right?
I know. I think that's like probably the only answer, though, right? Like,
right.
Mushroom Kingdom.
I don't think Super Mario Magic cards have the overlap that you think. Mostly because
I don't think they do either. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think the majority of the people who are like, I'm a big Mario fan outside the video games are children. Like they're like
yeah.
They're like just getting into the workforce if they're in the workforce at all yet, right?
And it would just be like a lot of adults be like, oh, that's cool. But like,
right.
Yes, it's not the same.
Right. I'd buy the 1-Up Mushroom Noxious Survival or whatever to put in a deck. And
Zelda though, I think Zelda though might.
It might, yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know if any of this is on the table. Of course.
Right. Right.
But I don't know. What you don't think Star Wars would be huge?
I really don't think Star Wars and Magic have as much overlap as Final Fantasy and Magic. And again, like, it's not to say that Star Wars wouldn't be wildly successful, right?
Yeah.
It's also, if I had to bet, Star Wars x Magic, the biggest barrier between it happening and not happening is the fact that Disney wants so much licensing for Star Wars.
Well, and
like,
they have there is a Star Wars game that is actively
Yep.
being pushed right now as well. So the licensing is like probably literally already held by another company, a la Marvel Snap. So
like Wizards has made a Star Wars game before, and the game ended because at the time it was Lucasfilm demanded like double their licensing fee when the contract was up, and the game just died, right? Like that's
like I think that to me what it really comes down to is not is expanding the base from which you're starting. Right. And I don't know enough. I don't know. Obviously, I know a lot about conventions, but like I don't know where 22,000 people at MagicCon for paid tickets ranks in sort of say a convention like say PAX or whatever, right? But it's certainly getting pretty big and expanding, and the number of things to do at the convention is worlds apart from where it was 2 years ago when we started.
Okay. So MagFest each year, Music and Gaming Fest, gets around 24,000 people at its best. Penny Arcade Expo has had as many as 120,000 before. According to a quick Google search, obviously.
Yeah, no, I would assume PAX has got to be the largest.
PAX is probably like
Gen
4
Con,
to 5 times
obviously,
bigger
but
than
that's
this.
Not real. So
yeah, Gen Con there'll never be another Gen Con. Right?
That's not real. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah. One of the things I really noticed in the hall was I think there were maybe 100 people I knew who were there that weekend who I didn't even spot once.
Yes, that's
like,
true.
It used to be you go to like an RC or whatever and you see all of your friends
That's
once
so
throughout
true.
the weekend in passing. Like this morning, I was like on my phone scrolling after I woke up, and I was like, "Oh, he was there. We should have grabbed lunch or something." And he's just like, "I didn't know you were there." And it wasn't until like midday Sunday that I went upstairs for the first time.
Yeah, I was upstairs, and the entrance upstairs. So I saw essentially nothing but the food court and the escalator upstairs to right where the ProTour was. But fortunately, the ProTour player area had popcorn, and right next to the ProTour, they had the arcade. Did you see the arcade?
I did. I didn't
Arcades Arcade, complete with Chandra's Fireball. They had a Magic commercial from the 90s running on a CRT TV. They have all themed air hockey, pinball. They had Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, old school arcade machines, Papa Shot. Just in terms of, and I know how silly it is to be like, oh, this is so, but like literally just to do something besides spend money at a convention for people is, in my opinion, a big part of the experience.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of panels. I didn't see or hear about any of them, but like I knew they were happening. The fact that a bunch of, and this might be, less of a broad appeal thing, but like a bunch of the video ads playing around the venue were just like of Ify Nwadiwe just talking about how much he loves Magic, right? And like, that's super sick. More on like the
go ahead.
More on like the hard finance side of things.
Yes. That's where I was going to go as well.
The amount of secondary market value generated by this set, like a normal Magic release generates X dollars. This has to be at least X times 4. And like, that's factoring in the fact that every secret layer is worth 2X the cost of entry. Every promo card given out at this event, even the non-foil base dog promo that I got for signing up like the worst badge is like $40.
Yeah.
Right?
They stuffed a lot of value into it for people.
But it's also just like, normally when a set comes out, there's very little action to be had if you're like a backpacker or even a booth vendor with a new set. But, I mean, every vendor's display case had low 5 figures to low 6 figures worth of Final Fantasy stuff in them. Like, it's so unfathomable to be like, I'm just stating facts at this point. I'm really not analyzing because it's so hard to know what it means, right?
Well, because it's in every vendor booth, even on like Sunday night, right towards the end of the convention, lines were wrapped around for people to trade in and do everything. Like, the fact that people could come in, get all of the stuff that Wizards gave them, or play their events and get their stuff, and then just keep churning into vendors for more Final Fantasy stuff. It was a really just huge on the weekend. But also, one of the other places that was probably the most value, I didn't know if this is where you were going to go with this earlier, is the fact that the Black Lotus badge had access to everything early. And given that prices for collector booster stuff was at X point when the pricing for these events was set, and then Y dollars when those events actually happened, they were the very limited number of tickets they were giving out to the drafts that awarded. They're like $100 tickets, but only 250 people a day or something got them for Final Fantasy drafts with collector boosters. And basically, only people who even had a shot at it were Black Lotus.
Yep.
And I do think it's good. I think you should encourage people to buy your premium offerings at a premium in-person experience. That is actually the whole point of why they're doing the entire convention in the first place, right? Yep. I do think that one generated maybe a little more feel bads than they would have hoped. But there was a lot of value in just having access to things early and actually signing up and playing in events as well.
But one of the things you touched on earlier, and sort of coming back to, opportunities for people, a lot of these sports cards people who are coming into Magic, a lot of these people who are coming in from other games who just see the money train happening, they're at a distinct disadvantage when they don't know the industry. And part of the value of being someone who's been in this space for so long and listening to a podcast like this where we provide value for this sort of thing is that I stumbled into an opportunity on Friday using a bunch of heuristics I have about the industry, right? I walked the vendor booths a couple of times, and I realized I had seen zero of the elemental bonus cards from the secret layer. Like the Solitude, Subtlety, Endurance, Fury, Grief. I had seen none of them at vendors. I asked vendors about them, and they said, well, I haven't seen any yet either. And I looked online, and I realized there were like 6 listings for each of them on TCG Player, if that. And throughout the rest of the weekend, I walked every vendor booth. One got listed, I'd buy it. One got listed, I'd buy it. I think my cost average on Solitudes was like $290 a copy, and right now, as of recording, TCG Low is like $700.
Yeah, and
because I was able to recognize, hey, this product exists. If they did exist, I think it's like efficient market theory or something states that the vendors would have them listed, like have them out for sale. And the fact that none of the vendors had seen them, and the fact that there were only 6 listings a piece or whatever, I can probably deduce that they're way more rare than people realize. And I think a lot of vendors caught on to it throughout the weekend. And if you are someone who is able to suss these things out using this sort of derived information, you can create opportunities for yourself, right?
And especially there's even the next layer of that is that that Solitude is a 4 in a lot of the best modern decks. And rando sports card Pokemon person who thinks they're geniuses because they bought some Final Fantasy boxes and now they're a Magic finance person. That's fine. Welcome, listen to our show. We'll help you out. But like, they don't know they don't know what Solitude, the context of Solitude in modern the way you do.
The other one that was interesting was that like the first of those elementals that sold online was a Fury for $600.
A banned one even.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to make of that particular sale, but the fact that like I was able to suss out that opportunity is the kind of thing that that's the end goal of learning about this industry, right? Is just being able to divine that from the air.
Well, and especially when there's so much noise happening right now with what's going on. Like, while all of this was happening, Wizards was previewing the next set, which is Edge of Eternities. And by the way, looks like a banger. Space Stations and Magic, I am here for. Like,
how about that new Tezzeret, too? That card is messed up.
Oh, Lantern Control.
Sure. That's where you want to go with it. That's fine.
Oh, we went there. Turn 2 Tezzeret and Lantern Control. Whew.
How about
back.
this? How about you go?
We're back.
How about you go? You go turn 1. Mana Vault Tezzeret minus grab Black Lotus, crack Black Lotus, play Time Vault.
I guess we could do that.
I'm really excited for Eternal Weekend this year. I'm going to do some messed up stuff in Vintage.
Yeah, that does sound like a pretty vintagey. That is probably the place you're supposed to think of with Tezzeret.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait a minute. Mox Opal plays this thing on turn 2.
Yeah.
It untaps my Ghoul Caller's Bell, the card I want to play most in Magic.
It also just is redundancy on finding the only card that matters in your deck, Lantern of Insight.
Yes, or yeah, it's I don't know if it'll matter, but it's worth trying. It'll be fun. But yeah, those spoilers came across, and it was one of those where I saw the space station, and I just had like an actual kind of laugh out loud moment where it just kind of hits on the like, I didn't know we could do that in Magic.
I think it's awesome. I love a good space opera.
Well, like it's how I felt when we did Duskmorn too, right? And I was like,
right.
I didn't know you could do modern horror type vibe cards in Magic. I think that's really cool. That's how I felt when I saw the space station stuff too. I was like, that's fucking neat. I want to crew Deep Space Nine.
Actually, if there is a Star Trek secret layer, I would go crazy.
I don't think there is, but that would be sweet.
But like, if there were to be,
I trust me. I thought about it because like obviously. It's Star Wars, right? I don't think that's what's happening for a multitude of reasons. But yes, my mind went to Deep Space Nine immediately. But I don't actually know that they have anything with Paramount.
Probably
because not. You know what could exist, Cass?
What's that?
Sonic the Hedgehog. For time it with Sonic 4 in 2027, which is coming out.
Real quick. They do have something with Paramount because Paramount owns Nickelodeon, who has SpongeBob and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, you're right.
So we could just see Secret Layer Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, just a thought. Just a thought. You're right. I thought they didn't have anything with Paramount, but they do with Paramount on Nickelodeon. So there you go. That's on the table. Oh, obviously Avatar, I guess, is through Nickelodeon, so that makes sense.
Yeah. We also have the SpongeBob layer, but yeah, the Avatar one is like...
I forgot about that Nickelodeon connection to Paramount, yeah.
Real quick, on the Avatar Aang card that got spoiled, I'm sure some people are excited about it. I don't know. It's so soupy.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
I think it was like I don't know anything about Avatar, literally nothing. I think they wanted a card that they could show with the most Avatar words on it. And, like, they didn't even tell anyone what the mechanics do.
I really hope that we get a bunch of Aangs in the set that are like 2-mana creatures that are pretty simple and like, that to me is the stuff that I like out of the Universes Beyond. Like, I really love the Samwise that's just like the mono white one. Like, that's my favorite Samwise in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, not everything has to be the One Ring or like Sauron is whatever giant 7-mana behemoth that does whatever, right?
Right.
And those cards, like, I know those cards are like the prototypical sort of commander designs. Honestly, they just feel like they get thrown out. I don't ever see anyone play like a Sauron commander deck, just
I think
6-7 mana
commander
things
deck
like
I've
that don't work.
seen. I think the only one of those I've ever seen was someone who wanted to do a Nazgul themed deck, and like that you kind of have to at that point.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Golem decks.
Yep.
That one's pretty busted actually, but yeah. Anyway, so all right, Vegas Pro Tour. This was supposed to be the Pro Tour of Is It Prowess and Corey Steel Cutter and Monstrous Rage, and it was that.
It did not fail to deliver. It was also quietly the Pro Tour of Stock Up.
Well, I remember because I have been, unfortunately, through every bit of the discourse and the tournaments for this format since Tarkir Dragonstorm. Every regional championship, the United States, the PT, blah, blah, blah. And I've watched this all happen. And I remember the first USRC, which was now probably like 6 weeks ago or something, talking to people. That event was won by Jeskai Control, by the way. Is It Prowess has not won any of these events. Telling me that Stock Up's actually the most broken card in the format. I mean, and that has just increased more and more with every event, and it was the most played card at the Pro Tour.
Yeah,
like it's an insane card. I don't know if it means to get banned, but
it might be the most intrinsically powerful card in Standard, but also Corey Steel Cutter is really efficient.
Corey Steel Cutter is stupid. That card.
Yeah.
That card is just bad design. It's way too pushed. But that is just neither here nor there. So, but here's at the Pro Tour, the top deck was 40% Is It Prowess. There was then a bunch of Omniscience and Mono Red. Those are the top 3 decks. The conventional wisdom was that Omni beat Prowess, Mono Red beat Prowess, but Prowess beat everything else and was basically 55-45 against those decks or whatever.
Sure.
Going into the Pro Tour, Vivi came out, and this became the new focal point of Standard, essentially. 91% of the players at the Pro Tour playing Is It Prowess played Vivi.
Yep.
Not all of them played Monastery Swiftsphere, which 2 months ago would have been insane if you suggested to people that Monastery Swiftsphere wasn't good. There was not a lot of agreement between the Prowess players about what to build. Okay, so then you actually get to the Pro Tour. The Prowess players think they fixed the matchup against Omni because of Vivi, and now it's a 50-50 matchup. We play it out, 4 Mono Red, 4 Is It Prowess in the top 8. Win percentages come out. Is It Prowess, for the first time in 2 months, was below a 50% win rate. It won like 49% of its matches. Omniscience was still a favorite against it. Omniscience won more of its matches. Mono Red won 60% of its matches. Like, Is It Prowess didn't even perform as well as people expected. Certainly not as well as, a deck with 40% metagame share you might expect. So I thought the event was fascinating going in because a lot of great players obviously played quote unquote the best deck because it was the best deck.
Right.
But the players who didn't play that deck felt really confident in their choices to not play that deck. And they were very good players as well. So I think it's just fascinating that when the data comes out, for the first time in 2 months, Is It Prowess was actually pushed below a 50% win rate. And Vivi, according to Ian Robb, was not a good card on the weekend. It was terrible in the mirror and didn't fix the matchups as well as they wanted it to. And they didn't even think it was that good. So from a storyline standpoint, the Pro Tour to me was fascinating. I think we're going to get a bunch of bans next week. I think rotation's going to happen, and none of this is going to quote-unquote matter. But like for this moment in time of Pro Tour Final Fantasy, I thought it was a pretty fascinating storyline.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And I think that like the data sort of hides a lot of little secrets from us. I don't think we've ever seen a Pro Tour where there was so much consensus on what the best deck was. Even Hogak Pro Tour, even Nadu Pro Tour, there was not as much consensus as there was going into this. And when there is that level of this is the best deck, we get to spend 55-60% of our testing time practicing and figuring out this matchup, that deck is going to suffer at the Pro Tour.
At a level it did not at the RC. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and Prowess is also a deck that if your opponent is at all a knucklehead, you're going to run them over for any reason.
Right.
Like
because it's just so inherently powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
But if your opponents are all playing pristine Magic, they all have spent 3 weeks minimum thinking about how to beat you specifically, the deck is going to suffer. And again, like I think this is the highest percentage player we've ever had for a deck in a PT, question mark? I think that might be time.
Well, no? I don't know necessarily about a deck. Oko and Omnath were both played in higher numbers, depending on how you break down archetypes. But those are the only 2 cards that were more played at a Pro Tour history than Corey Steele Monstrous Rage.
That's ridiculous. I mean, that's a rarefied class, right? Like that.
Exactly.
That's tough competition.
Yeah. Oko was 69% of the meta, famously. And Omnath was like 60-something. And it was like 50-something for Corey Steele and Monstrous Rage if you combine them or something. So, but yeah, Is It Prowess itself was 40-something%. Interestingly, Paulo Vito D'Armendariz, the GOAT in my opinion, was in attendance this weekend playing a different blue-red spells deck with Vivi that was like an equipment Vivi deck. So that also played Soul Cauldron. Yeah, Soul Cauldron and Thrill Seeker, Voldarian's Thrill Seeker. You're right. The equipment Vivi deck might have been a different Is It build.
Well, so the equipment was in the deck. It was Astrologian's Planisphere. So I am very familiar with this deck.
It's
one
sweet.
of Northern Virginia local hero Peter Hasusian also played the deck. The first round constructed, they played a mirror. The builds were fairly different in their philosophies. Like Peter's was far more mid-rangey, and Paulo's was a little bit more aggressive and combo-centric. Yeah. But there is something to that deck. Like that deck is doing something fundamentally broken and also playing all the good cards.
Yes, Paulo went 8-2 with it, and he hasn't really played Magic in a couple years, right? So like,
but he is also the GOAT.
Yes, yes.
He's on the level where he can he can't win with a ham sandwich. He can win with like a ham and cheese sandwich, you know?
Yeah, like in our production meetings, he was described by one of my bosses as a consensus top 3 player, and I was like, no, he's not. He's a consensus GOAT. Yeah. Now I realize I may be pushing the word consensus there, but it is my opinion that he played in a different era, which was much more difficult.
Interesting. I actually think that the Pro Tour is the hardest it's ever been.
I do too. I'm saying it was harder than when Kai and Finkel were winning.
Oh, okay. Understood. Yes. Yeah, I think
the Pro Tour right now is definitely the hardest it's ever been.
Yeah. There are people who think that Paolo is the greatest player of all time, and there are people who are wrong. And those are 2 different categories, right? Like,
there you go. Yeah. I also think that the Pro Tour in the year of our Lord Skidder 2025 is very different than the Pro Tour was in 2022. And very different than it was in 2019.
Yeah. A lot of this weekend was actually me talking to my friends who were like in the Pro Tour and the PTQs and realizing that Like, I am someone who's pretty attuned to the competitive circuit. I think I am a decent player, and I am just not on level to play Pro Tours anymore. Like, I used to be, and I'm just not anymore, and there's almost a comfort in that, knowing that I don't have to fight for it. I don't have to keep the fire going because it's already gone.
You just go and you show up, and when you run one off, it feels great. But it is what it is. Like the Pro Tour level of competition, 330 people, when Magic is the biggest it's ever been, is like pretty. There are more ways to qualify than ever before. So like you're not just playing against the people who were out at the RC or even at the Spotlight. Like, you have people grinding Arena and Magic Online to get Pro Tour invites. So you're competing against that whole field as well. So when you start breaking down 330 players at the Pro Tour into this many invites came from this bucket, this came from this bucket, and then actually do the math on your odds of making it to the Pro Tour, it's insane. So
you have to be
you
have to be a world-class Magic player and apparently also a world-class Pokemon player to win a Pro Tour.
And then, yes, and the teams aspect of things are so... It's not just like get people in a house for a week and test and keep some data. It's like, I was talking to Mark Jacobson about this. He was like, one of the biggest team discussions we had to have a month ago was how we were going to incorporate data into our results and which data and what tweaks we were going to make into it before we ever picked up a Magic card.
I think that we are close to being in an era in which, dare I say it, Magic might be esports, in that we might actually just like have teams with a team manager who their full-time job, like someone who's not even qualified for the PT, right? Someone whose job it is to be like a playtesting scrum master, someone whose job it is to professionally parse that, like hire somebody who has professional expertise with managing teams, who understands Magic at a high level. I know you don't have to be the best player in the world to be the best coach, right? Like
realistically,
hiring a coach for the team.
Yeah, realistically, that's what Eduardo Sajiclic's been doing for several years now. Yeah. He's and he's not the only person who has fell into a role of I am the person running the team's limited. I am the limited coach on the team. And then the other person is like, I am the person who's in charge of all the logistics for coordinating 12 people getting into this city from across the world. Like, that is happening. The reason, like, if there were more money right now in esports or any of this, the issue is that as all of this has come along, the content ecosystem died because remember when Star City put 2 teams in a fucking castle for a Pro Tour? We are unfortunately the money is not there in that way, and that's a symptom of a larger problem. I actually spent a lot of time talking about this issue with some people as well. As they were asking me, like, well, how does a card get priced on Final Fantasy when this comes out? Like, how do we decide what this card is going to cost? Who makes that choice? And I was like, well, blah blah blah, it's this and this, and then I was like, but essentially, a price gets put out there, and then people it just goes. I guess it goes up or down. And I was like, it is a little different. And one of the reasons there can be more surprises are cards that fly under the radar. Because I think we were talking about Corey Steelcutter and how for the first couple of weeks, the price went really low. It went down to like $3. It was $2 or $3.
I want the record to say that I called that card on day 0.
Yeah,
I believe there is evidence on this podcast of it.
Well, so the thing is, like, I fully believe that good players knew it was good, but how does that get disseminated to the market?
Right.
There is no 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they would preview Daybreak Ranger, and Brian Kibler would spend 3 weeks talking about Daybreak Ranger on Star City Premium, driving traffic to Star City Premium and driving sales to StarCityGames.com before Daybreak Ranger ever even was printed and came out. And that just doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, you have somebody making a TikTok, putting Vivi up next to some commander card, and maybe you get a random commander spike. But at the end of the day, playability in competitive formats still drives a ton of card prices. But what we don't have is the content ecosystem where all of that is centralized enough that people, and the timing is far enough out that stuff moves. So at the end of the day, there are opportunities, because Corey Steelcutter was apparent to people like Cass that it was good. Like, no one who played Magic thought that it was going to like be bad, but it still hit $2 because there isn't the same ecosystem that there used to be. Wow. And this is where like all of media starts breaking down, in that, you know, Star City Premium doesn't exist anymore because clicks to Star City don't work the same way. Magic doesn't work the same way it used to. Even clicks themselves don't exist as much as they used to, because now Google AI aggregates your web page when it scrapes it, and people don't even click through. So like from a content standpoint, web clicks are not even the same metric that they used to be. So the media ecosystem is changing a lot. And if you're somebody who's into sports at all, you see this with what's going on at ESPN and so on. We are in a real time of upheaval, and that includes this podcast, right? Like, we appreciate everyone who goes to patreon.com/BSB and supports us. But, you know, frankly, like, the podcast Patreon scene is not what it was 10 years ago. The content has moved on in other ways. So, like, it is just kind of what it is. And we're very fortunate to have built something, thanks to people go to patreon.com/BSB, that we're able to keep doing this. But it's really difficult to break into something or to just get new information out there. Like, say, hey, Corey Steel Cutter is going to break standard.
Well, and it's actually interesting now where a real example of, and this is obviously isn't a competitive card necessarily, but like a real example of how prices on cards are set these days is people are wrong until everyone agrees what's right. The PTQ Tifa is a great example, right? Like the vendor who paid somebody $75, that person who sold it for $75 probably feels terrible, but I bet that vendor sold it for $200, right? Like at most.
Yeah, and they don't feel amazing either.
Exactly. And the people just are wrong until we hit the number that it's at now, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and that's,
no one could have seen that coming, right?
Well, and that's what, in retrospect, it seems obvious we should have bought a bunch of collector booster boxes at $700. But when I was used to, like, I have a visceral memory of last summer paying $220 a box on Duskborn boxes and getting 4 of them. And now you're telling me that's what it was going to cost me to get one Final Fantasy collector box? I was like, even if that, I don't think it's going to go down. Like, that just feels wild. Of course, now it's gone up to $1,200 or whatever. So it always feels obvious in retrospect. But yeah, I think you said it earlier, right? Like, we're just actually living through unprecedented times in both the world and the Magic market. And there is opportunity to be found. All right, what else happened to Vegas, Cass? That was a lot. Go ahead.
I did the smallest amount of gambling, but not at a casino. I opened one Final Fantasy collector booster box.
Oh, okay.
My buy-in was too high, and I'm pretty sure if I sold everything after fees, I lose like $300. However, I did get the experience of opening the coolest card in the set. I'm holding it up for the camera for those of us on YouTube. It's a foil Amano Kefka Court Mage, which if I had to pick one card out of the set to pull, it'd be this one. It's my husband's favorite character.
That card's cool.
And like opening a foil Amano card feels so sick. And I'm glad I gambled on Final Fantasy Collector Box. I'm glad I did that, but only because I opened my favorite card. If I made a small amount of money that I had to work to get, I would have been unhappy. If I had lost money and not got something that made me happy, I would have been unhappy.
Well, you know what? You opened a card, as DJ would say, that sparked joy. And that's the point. I actually kind of went through that thought process with, I saw a Lord of the Rings collector box for $1,900 at a booth this weekend. And I was just like, I opened up several of those, right? And honestly, I didn't even, at the time, didn't really even make money on them. Lost money, didn't feel great about it. Didn't feel bad about it because I liked the cards, right? But I didn't make money on them, kind of the same situation. And now, obviously, they're worth infinite. But yeah, I think about it. I enjoyed opening the box, right? So it does kind of hit the little bit of the territory of, are we collecting these Pokemon ETBs because I'm going to crack them one day or because I'm investing? But that's the point. When you're Wizards and you do something like this, you're able to appeal to people on that level. So what do you think happens now with Final Fantasy prices? Like, say, collector booster boxes.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Peak supply is after the vendors list their stuff from the weekend. Maybe even it's already happened. I don't know. It's maybe Sunday at the con was peak available supply of these collector cards. There's only one way to go, I think, and it's up. Unless there is an announcement of a holiday special release thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Lord
shocked
of the
if
Rings
there.
holiday box.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's something, but at the same time, didn't those holiday boxes create even more expensive cards?
Yes.
So it might not
but
even.
They did devalue some of the cards from the first run of collector boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I mean, obviously that's a possibility. There's also the idea that a lot of people who did gamble on these stuff, on these boxes or whatever, now have credit card bills that they have to pay off or what have you. And that's going to lead to some amount of the motivated selling, perhaps. But even so, that would have happened now. That would be happening as we speak. And by the time you're listening to this podcast, that may have already passed.
My whole line with this, I think we're past the I think the best time to buy this stuff originally was the Friday that it became possible for individuals to sell on TCG Player, right? Like that was that to me was the lowest the prices were going to be, barring a holiday release that tanks the prices of anything. But
right,
if you want something from the set for yourself, get it now. I think we're past the point of buying stuff from the set to flip and be an investment being good. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Because it costs so much and it's not going to double in price in the next month or even probably 6 months.
We talked about how the way to find prices on this stuff is to just try until everyone agrees on a number. Well, we had 22,000 people trying to agree on numbers in Vegas, and I think we found some pretty good spots to stop.
Yeah. Yes, that's a very good way to put it. Speaking of stopping, we're getting into the show here. So, Cass, is there anything else you want to touch on from Las Vegas, or do we want to maybe leave everyone with some picks of the week from here?
The only other thing about Las Vegas was that I picked up my last mocks, and so I'm ready to play Vintage Eternal Weekend. Very excited about that. Yeah, that's big for me.
When is Eternal Weekend?
October 6th through 9th in Pittsburgh.
I've never been to one, but it seems like it would be an event that would be cool to go to. Who puts that on?
Card Titan. It's the most fun event every year.
Maybe I'll have to get out to that. Special. I know Nick.
Please do. I would love to come. We can grab dinner. There's a great pizza place in the city. If you're going to Eternal Weekend, Pittsburgh's a great food city. Don't discount it just because it's Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh Blue. That's how I got one of my steaks over the weekend.
Yep.
Delicious.
Great food city. There's a beautiful river going through it. If you can be on the water, just be on the water. I don't know. It's a great place. Even in the winter when it's cold, I still love it there.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm in random cities is to go to baseball games. I'm just like a real romanticist. Maybe that's not a word about baseball. Particularly.
How can you not be?
Yeah. So in Pittsburgh, I've been to a game, and the stadium is right there on the river.
Yep.
And it is peak baseball. So I'll say that.
Fun fact for you: from the venue for Eternal Weekend, you can kind of see the baseball game because the convention center is right on the other side of the river.
Yes. Yeah. That's the best part. Is you walk out of the convention center, you just wander by a baseball game, and then it's the third or fourth inning. You get a half-price ticket, and you go do some minor league baseball. It's what I did in Hartford. It was great.
Yeah, big
and Indianapolis.
The convention center is also right next to the theater district, so if you're into musicals or anything, you cannot spit on a windy day without finding a good musical in that city.
All right, so put that one on the calendar. I think we have a Pro Tour before then as well. In the meantime, I guess it's going to be the summer of Final Fantasy. So before we get out of here this week, let's leave you with some picks of the week.
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
So this week I have two picks of the week, one of which is kind of cheeky, one of which is a broad category of things. So that's why you get two. My cheeky one is Mirrodin Ornithopter. Now, the real shtick with this is that there are a number of people out there trying to purchase 100 of them. And there's basically no vendors with more than 8 of them available on any marketplace.
Right.
If you have ornithopters, if you have them, a couple of them cheap or whatever, and you can get them, buy lists on them are strong right now. Last I checked, there was a 2x spread on buy lists to retail for specifically Mirrodin Ornithopter because it's the most affordable, cool ornithopter. Yeah, there are multiple buy lists at retail on it. If you can get 10, 15 of these together at once, I'm sure you can get a bonus if you sell them on a marketplace. Just a weird market condition has led to this card being good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no vendor has more than 8. My real pick of the week is Final Fantasy Secret Lair cards. Mentioned a couple times in the cast so far. $25 Cyclonic Rift with Final Fantasy skin cannot be correct forever, right?
Yeah, I have to agree with that one. The Secret Lairs have all done well, it seems like, on this kind of product. Okay, I'll hop in. I've got I think this is a standard pick. Kellen the Fey-Blooded from Wilds of Eldraine has climbed from about $3 to about $6 recently. So it's already had some movement, but it's a mythic, and I think it's just probably going to be 10. This goes and gets equipment out of your library. It then has additional abilities once you get off the adventure side. So this is a mix of, could find some standard playability. As I mentioned, I think standard's going to look pretty different, and there are people messing around with equipment in standard. But obviously it ties into all of the commander and everything else stuff that goes with it. So I think it's just more likely to be a $10 mythic than a $3 mythic again. And it's moving now. So if you're into that, this is a mythic from Wilds of Eldraine. You probably want to at least Google and see if you're interested in it. Kellen the Fey-Blooded.
Yeah, my card's really strong. I like the combination of double striking creature and Steel Shaper's Gift on one card.
Yes, and I didn't even realize at first until I dug into it that it's a mythic. So like that's just going to help quite a bit in this case. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that might wrap it up for us this week. DJ, he couldn't hack it after Vegas. Cass and I were the only ones able to pull it together enough after having our brains fried. So thanks for that, Cass.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I like doing casts with you, Corbin, because you'll just talk for 10 minutes consecutive, and then I talk for 10 minutes consecutive, and it's kind of just like two autistic people info dumping, and it's really honestly very comforting.
All we need is just put some gameplay in front of us. We'd be set. Hang out with us all afternoon, you know?
Yeah.
Put some magic on in front of us.
We'd be great commentators together.
Yeah. Let's talk to NRG. Let's get on it. Everybody, thank you for listening to Brainstorm Brewery. Hey, thanks to everybody who goes to patreon.com, supports us, or watches on YouTube, youtube.com/Brainstorm Brewery. So shout out to all of you for hanging out with us. DJ, I think we'll be able to be recovered enough to see you next week. Thanks for listening to Brainstorm Brewery. We'll see you then.
Bye.